Hey guys, Owen from Touratech USA, here with another 1300GS installation video. Some of the models are coming from the factory with these lower crash bars, which is decent protection for your cylinder head guards. It does leave your fairings exposed to any drop accidents and damage. So we designed the fairing crash bars that are mounted directly to the OEM lowers and wrap around to give you some more protection up top. Let's jump into the install. Here we've got all the tools necessary to get these fairing crash bars installed. We'll start with the fairing removal tool. You can get away with using a couple of flatheads if you don't have one of these. In addition, we'll need a T45 Torx bit, a T27 Torx bit, and a T25. All right, we're working on the underside of the beak. There's a few fasteners we need to take off before we can pop the plastic rivets. Firstly, we've got this right here and another one over on the other side. These hold the front beak together, so you're going to use your trim tool to hook it in and release that plastic rivet. Do the same for the other side. Next, we need to remove these OEM fog light accessories. In order to do that, you take your T27 Torx bit, hook it onto the fastener, and with your finger securing the nut on the other side, just start loosening it. Now that we're back up top, we can start the process of removing the beak by popping the plastic that holds it into place. I like to start in the rear here, supporting it on both sides, and just give it a nice firm tug. You'll hear the plastic pops release. Repeat the process on the other side. And then the peak, or the beak, should slide right off. In order to be able to hang our fairing bracket, we're going to remove these two screws from the side. So take your T27 and loosen those up, these factory bolts. With these two holes open, we're ready to put our bracket in place. There are two that come with the kit, and you'll want to make sure that you use the one correct for the side you're working on. The swoop in the bracket should be facing out from the motorcycle, so we know that this one, which lines up with the orientation of those two holes, is correct for this side. So drop it into place, and with the both holes lined up, thread your fastener in. Now that we've got them threaded in place, we're going to tighten down these M5 by 25 Torx bits to secure the bracket. So we've got our brackets in place and loosely attached up under the beak of the motorcycle. And with that, we're ready to put the first side on. Touratech has included some protective tape so that the finish of your factory bars doesn't get scratched up by this lower clamp assembly here. It's best to do this with a friend. You'll just hold the bar in place up against the bracket under the nose and then see where the bottom clamp is going to interact with the crash bars. I like to just use my finger, point at where the edge of the clamp is, and use that as a reference so that we can apply our protective tape. There's 4 pieces, so you can use 2 per side in order to cover the whole crash bar. With that in place, we're ready to take our bar, as well as our included clamp and M8 by 25 bolt to get it installed. I'm gonna have my friend hold the upper portion against that bracket while I slot the bottom onto the crash bars. With him holding that in place, you take the female side of the clamp, hook it over the bottom of the crash bars, and then slide your fastener through both sides of this clamp and get your nylock nut started. With this clamp loosely in place, we're now ready to let the crash bar hang as we go in and attach the center crossbar. Now that we've got everything in place, you'll notice that the wire for the OEM fog light is just dangling here. In order to mount this, you do need to pick up the Touratech auxiliary light mounting bracket, which can be found on the website description for this product. If you'd like to not run your factory fog light, you can just take this and zip tie it up out of place. Maybe wrap some electrical tape over the connector to keep it nice and solid. With everything ready to go, the first step is to take one of your bolts and just hook it through the rear fastener position. I like to do that so it can just kind of hold in place. Next, you're gonna grab your crossbar here and another one of those M6 by 20 bolts, as well as an M6 washer. This is where it's helpful to have a friend to be able to hold everything in place and get that final bolt through. Up higher a little bit. There we go. Okay, you're good. Now with the bolt through the crash bar and the bracket, as well as the crossbar, you're going to take your washer, feed it through and over that fastener. And finally, you're going to take one of the nuts and put it in place on that fastener. We've got the front one on. You'll notice everything is still nice and loose. Let's get started on the back one. We're now going to go over to the other side and repeat this process with the other side crash bar. Now that we've got the other side installed and our crossbar loosely in place, these bolts are just hand tight, it's time to grab our T27 ratchet and our 10mm box wrench in order to tighten all of these bolts up. This is the first time we're actually going to be tightening stuff down. I like to start on these back ones because they can be a little bit hard to reach. These are all nylock nuts, so we know that we've reached the bottom of the thread when we start encountering some extra resistance while we're ratcheting. Since everything is tight here, our crossbar is in a position that we like it, we're ready to go back up and begin putting the beak back on the bike. The final step before we get this beak put back on is to go around and secure the fasteners holding these clamps in place, as well as the fastener holding the upper bars to the lowers. These top ones are still a T25, so you'll hook that in. Make sure that it's nice and tight. And then grab your T45, come down here and secure this clamp. With all of our connection points in place, we're ready to start putting that beak back on. Again, working from the back, these plastic rivets just pop into place. The final step, once the beak is installed, is to replace the pop rivets that we took out at the very beginning. Find those same holes, push the rivet through, and pop it into place. With everything in place, your upper fairing crash bars are now installed. If you have any questions about this installation, drop it in the comments or give us a call. Check out these and all other products available for the 1300GS at touratech-usa.com.